Okay, let me set this up for you, and it sounds a bit weird, but go with me. 1997, in the midst of a brutal Russian winter, a rare Siberian tiger engaged in what appeared to be a deliberate murderous vendetta against a desperate poacher. He shred the man to bits.
Позже тело Владимира Маркова было найдено всего в нескольких метрах от его барака. Тигр явно поджидал его.
That's right. I said engaged in a deliberate vendetta. See, the hunter had wounded the tiger, stolen part of a wild boar that the big cat had killed, and upset the natural order of the wild after the tiger eviscerated the hunter, his dog, and his house. It left a bloody trail of havoc and death in this remote Russian village. A team of men, led by an expert tracker, set out to find the tiger before it could strike again. But they encountered something so strange that it almost defies belief. Were they hunting the tiger, or was the tiger hunting them?
То есть деревня была в таком напряжении. Уже вот здесь психологический вопрос уже стал конкретно, что дошло до людей.
Here's where John Vaillant comes in. So he sees this film called Conflict Tiger, an award-winning documentary about the story. He decides he needs to do more. So he travels to Eastern Russia to investigate the story of this rogue tiger with a taste for revenge. Now, John has written about our relationship with the natural world before. The first book was called Golden Spruce, questioned whether the damage we inflict on nature can ever be justified. And now with the tiger, he poses more question in that battle between man and nature. Who wins? And with the world's tiger population down more than 90% over the last 100 years, do these magnificent creatures stand a fighting chance? Please welcome John Vaillant. What a pleasure, man.
Hey, mine too.
Thank you. Thank you. I finished reading the book, dude, late last night, probably about 3:30 in the morning, and it's a really great time to read a book about a stalking tiger.
Yeah.
Because you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know?
Defenses are down.
They are.
Yeah.
Before we go anywhere, because I want to believe the story, but you know how when a story like this can very quickly take on mythical, status. How close, like, I know you obviously endeavor to tell the real story, but did you ever worry about, like, how do you make sure this story is really true?
In my job, I'm not allowed to make things up. It can destroy my career to do that, right? So, and what was amazing about this case is the wardens who investigated it treated it like a murder. So there was video, there were photos, there were interviews, there were maps drawn, inventories taken, an enormous amount of data to work with. And the fact that it took place in winter, you could still follow the tracks. So, and there's so much information just to be read from there. I mean, it's like notes from the tiger, right?
It's one thing for a tiger to be involved in an attack. Can a tiger premeditate, you're the one?
They can. And in this case, this individual, Markov, an unemployed logger, shot this tiger at point-blank range, and that was determined later forensically. The tiger identified him. It's in that sense, it's not a unique case. Tigers will run into gunfire. They will chase helicopters. They don't know fear in the way that we do. And this guy was crowding him, attacking him, threatening him. And what tigers do is they liquidate their threats.
What did the victims look like when the tiger was done with them?
I saw the video. Had to watch it many times. It's horrific. The second fellow, there was nothing left. I mean, literally, what was left of him, you could put in your pocket. And so it's heavy.
Usually in situations of an animal attack, right? It's often we, as humankind, end up in their terrain, so it's their venue. And often, and I'm never glib about anybody's pain or suffering, but I usually root with the animal because it's nature, right?
Yeah.
And some drunk guy in San Francisco jumps into a tiger pen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? It's Darwinism, pal. But this is different because the people hunting tigers here, this isn't just like a bunch of necessarily random poachers. This is people in impoverished situations. They're just trying to get by too, right?
Yeah. No, this was after the collapse of communism. There was a vacuum there. There was nothing. There was unemployment and triple-digit inflation. It was devastating. And these guys lived hand-to-mouth for years. I mean, these are scrappy, tough Russian guys living in the forest. They're hunting, they're fishing, they're looking after themselves. But the border with China opened. In this village, it was 30 miles away, and there's an active and very lucrative market for tiger parts in China. And the Russians had them. The Russians had never been poorer. The Chinese never wealthier. It was a match made in hell, really.
As much as this story feels like, when you read it, it's far away from here, it's really not, because we're the ones that want $25 furniture from this store with protected wood and
Yeah, I mean that's a real. I mean, a lot of the wood that's coming out of the wood, it creates the habitat that the tigers live in. A lot of that's going into China, and that is being turned into very cheap wooden goods that we buy at big box stores. And wow, it's so cheap, I can't believe it. Well, believe it.
Therein lies the rub, right?
Yeah.
It's just that everybody is sort of, we are responsible for our own actions, and our own actions have equal and opposite reactions, don't they?
Absolutely, and what makes it difficult with tigers is, there are only 3,000 left in the wild. There's only about 400 left in Russia, and so, if it only takes a few people, and you can cut that number by half even. But if you can stop the damage, they will recover very quickly.
It's such a powerful symbol. What is it about the tiger that makes it so magic?
You know what Viagra means in Sanskrit? It doesn't mean 7 in a row. It means tiger.
Wait a second. I want to just, if I can have a diversion for a second. It means
I wouldn't know, but
it means 7. No, it means tiger.
Viagra means tiger in Sanskrit, and that's not an accident. And everybody wants a tiger in their tank. They're incredibly potent beings. So many sports teams, and you want go to the Russian Far East, and many women are wearing tiger stripes and leopard spots, and it gets my attention.
But it's primal for us, really. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So the question is, how do you get people to go to that other human emotion, which is empathy and even compassion, and let that kind of rule?
It's crucial, and this is an interesting thing that happened to me. I was in China. On the street, there's a Tibetan guy selling all kinds of animal parts, genitalia, antlers, gallbladders, and me and a couple of guys were looking at this, and a woman walked by, and then we're a bunch of guys looking at illegal stuff, and she walks by, looks at us, and she says, "That's illegal." And I just wonder how many of us, men or women, who've seen many illegal things going on in the streets of Toronto, Vancouver, where I'm from, I don't say anything.
Peter Benchley, I've heard him talk about this, that he's the guy that was responsible for Jaws. He wrote the book, right? He didn't know much about sharks at the time, but after Jaws, he had spent a lot of time learning about them, and he said, had he known what he learned later, but he never would have written Jaws because it really gave people a misconception of what sharks are.
What's amazing about this particular case as a writer is there was so much information about the tiger. The tiger isn't this abstract menace like a shark bursting up out of the water.
Right.
This tiger has a character, he has a history, he has issues. You can watch him learning and changing. And what you do know is he never troubled human beings until he was shot.
It forces people to look at these animals like, there's this division between us and them, but it's not really.
It narrows, and it narrows in there. And the white Russian hunters and the indigenous hunters who are still there, they have a kind of collegial relationship with this animal. They're hunting the same game. They don't conflict. They know not to crowd each other. And there's a kind of cooperation in the forest. It's amazing.
How does the fact that you get to tell a story like this and you get to apply it towards conservation change you as a writer and the next stories you want to tell?
There's tremendous urgency in the world right now for action and for consciousness and for an awareness of we're a successful species, unbelievably successful, and that comes out of the animal's hide, so to speak. And we need to find a way to negotiate with them and mediate that success so that they have some space. And to be able to tell a story that amazing that really happened, in this day and age, is a responsibility, but it's also an incredible privilege.
It's good to see you, man. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate that. John Valier's name. The book is called The Tiger, a true story of vengeance and survival. We'll be right back.